World War II was a disaster. And some people think, well, that was war. And some people think it was justified. They look at Hitler and they think, you know what? I can understand, I can relate. The 1% immigrants committing most of the violence in their host nation, yeah, that would upset me too. Hitler was right. And maybe he was, I don't know. But you can't explain or you can't justify the genocide that took place. That was just wrong. And so people look at that and they think that that's war. And you imagine little babies being burned to death, or they take their opponent soldiers and they slit their throats, and they do all kinds of atrocities, and you think that's war, and it is. And there's no denying that. It's a terrible, terrible thing. It's hell. War is hell. You know, so you look at that and you think, maybe that's war. But then when you consider life and you consider the things you go through in life just to get a breath of air, that's war. You know, you think about people with COPD, chronic obstruction pulmonary disease, and they live into their 90s sometimes, and they can barely get a breath of air. It's a struggle. How do you sleep with some chronic disease like that? Now that's war. Or maybe you're a hard-working man and you got to put food on the table, so every day you have to choose to wake up and get on the road, and drive, and get somewhere so you can make money and deal with idiots on the road. And so maybe you come across a shady character on the road who's got road rage and he wants to kill you, and you have to blow his head off because he pulls a gun on you. That's war as well. So life can be war. Life can be war. And you think, well, what about addictions? Well, what about them? How is that war? I mean, just say no, right? Oh, it's not that easy. I mean, you look at the prodigal son in Luke chapter 15, and he wasted his substance with riotous living, as the Bible says in the King James Version. Wasted his substance. He took his inheritance that his father would have left him when he passed, but yet got it while he was alive and just went and gambled it away, so to speak. You know, and the Bible's not very specific, but it's implied that he wasted his substance with harlots, and a harlot is an old English word for prostitute. And so he was really living it up, and he wasted it and ended up with nothing. But that's war. You know, when you're dealing with addictions or personal issues that you can't seem to get control of, that's war. Because war is about control. If you don't have control, you've got a problem. And that's why people go to war. It's all about control. And so, in war, you can surrender. There's nothing wrong with surrendering. You can surrender to the greater power. Maybe they beat you, right? You know, sometimes when the Palestinian terrorists, they would surrender to the Israelis, they'd come out with their hands up, they'd throw their weapons down, and they'd walk up to the Israeli soldiers. The Israeli soldiers would have their guns drawn out, pointed right at them. And they'd say, don't shoot, I surrender. And so the Israeli soldiers would take them and walk them over to some other spot, and they'd back away from the POWs, and then they'd execute them. Just absolutely shoot them to death. And you think, well, why would they do that? They surrendered. Yeah, they surrendered. But there's no guarantee that the person you surrender to is going to have mercy on you. Well, that's the difference between people and God. God will have mercy on you. You surrender to Him, He'll take you right on in, take care of you. He'll feed you, make sure you got a place to sleep. He'll take care of you. See, God treats His prisoners of war differently than man does. Man wants to be cruel and unusual in His punishment. God will actually, He'll forgive you. He'll actually forgive you, and He'll take care of you. So when you surrender, make sure you surrender to Him. But in the context of human desire, your surrender needs to be to God. You need to surrender to the higher power, because that's where the strength lies. You can't do it on your own. You can't find the power within. You've got to find the power somewhere else. You've got to have an ally in this war. See, that was the problem with Hitler. He didn't have an ally. And some people argue, no, he had Japan and he had Mussolini. He didn't have Mussolini. Matter of fact, Hitler was occupying Italy at some point. And Mussolini was useless. He was absolutely useless and out the game so quickly that Hitler was literally all by himself in the war. Because Japan was fighting its own battles for the past 2 years, and they weren't communicating at all. They weren't trading U-boats or fighter jets, anything. And they were fighting 2 different wars. And so Hitler had no ally. But that's where the winners came in. The winners had allies. The British had the Americans, and the Americans had the British. So they were able to fight and win the war. And so you need an ally. You need an ally with God to win the personal battles you deal with. And if you go to war without an ally like God, you're asking for trouble. You're asking for trouble. And you're not going to win.